Welcome back to the Occult Rejects. This episode, we got two bangers with us. We got two big guests and two returning guys that I've only had on the show once, but already love what they brought together, and I can't wait to see what they do together as a team. But before we get to Collin and Richard, let me introduce the other rejects. And we got my man, the Headless Giant. What is going on, sir? How are you?
How's it going? You can find me on YouTube, on Twitter, and I've got a bunch of shows. Tomorrow I'm doing the trialogues with Ethan Indigo and hopefully Ricard Calvadio, and we're going to be talking about any sort of topics, and usually they all relate back to each other. Then I got 777 on Tuesdays with Nick, and we go through the Kabbalah of Aleister Crowley, which is a very interesting show. And then the mailbags on Thursday, Headless's Magical Mailbag, we go over some of your emails about occult experiences that you can send to us at the Headless Giant Podcast at gmail.com. And also, we're doing remote viewing, audience participation. So definitely check those out. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for joining us today. And Ethan Indigo, what is going on, sir? Please let everybody know where they can find all your amazing work and your books.
Salute, everybody. Thank you, Nick, for putting all this together, and thank you guys for being here. I know this is going to be awesome topic. It's very contrarian for most of the things out there right now, so appreciate it. Ethan Indigo Smith on all the social media, pretty easy to find, and like to get together with Headless and Ricardo every week, and always like to be on any show with the Occult Rejects, so appreciate you guys.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
Oh yeah, my books. I got plenty of books. I forgot. Even as you reminded me, Nick, I forgot. The Geometry of Energy is actually a free ebook right now. If people want to check it out. So.
Oh, that is awesome, dude. Nice, very nice. Yeah, definitely go check out Ethan's books. I mean, he's got a fuck ton of them actually, and he never promotes them. But thank you, Ethan. And I guess before I introduce them too, I guess for the listeners, I just want to let them know that I think, I'm going to ask, see how everybody else is feeling. But there's a good possibility we might be going live at 8:30 in the fucking morning tomorrow morning. We got David James Smith coming on, and I guess I coordinated with him, and somehow I guess 8:30 sounded like a good time tomorrow. So we got all of us, and Sky Mathis will be joining us. So I have no problem going live, but if everybody else is functioning, maybe we'll go live, and you can catch us tomorrow morning if you're up. Now let's move on to the guests. We got Richard Ruach. What is going on, sir? How are you? Please let everybody know where they can find all your amazing work.
Howdy. I'm Richard, live from Dranlake Castle. You can find me on YouTube. You can find me on Substack. You can find me on Twitter, or X as they call it nowadays. Yeah, I make some silly content, and you usually join me on Sundays this time for a little Manly P Hole stream, but I gave that up today because we need to definitively prove once and for all that the true key to spirituality is not psychedelics, but male pattern baldness. Let's go, guys.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, everyone else, but that's the key. That's the key.
Yo, I shit you not. Earlier, I was thinking, if I came on the show too, I was like, how many bald motherfuckers are going to be on the show tonight? I was thinking about that. I was like, yo, is there something up with occultists and going bald? Fucking weird. But Richard, thank you so much for coming on, man. You did a great job when you came on for the Rosicrucianism. Everybody loved you. You're already a fan favorite. So I'm really looking forward to having you back on, especially for this topic. And finally, our other guest, another one who's been on before. I had a great time with the dude. Everybody loved it as well. And looking forward to hopefully working with him more often. Collin Conkwright, please let everybody know where they can find your show and let them know where you're going to be speaking in April.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on once again. Collin Conkwright, you can find me at American Esoteric on YouTube, Substack. Writer, researcher, going on over 12 years now. So glad to have a an avenue to actually get this material out there. I'll be speaking at the Southeastern Masonic Symposium on April 25th at the Asheville Masonic Lodge. So go check that out. If you look it up, you'll see an Eventbrite link, and there's like digital links. You don't have to be a Freemason to attend. So that should be really, really fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely check it out. We got Collin Conkwright speaking. Ike Baker will be there. Tom Carter, and the keynote speaker will be John Michael Greer. I will be there, so if you show up, I'll smoke one with you. If you happen to be a fan of the show, maybe I'll even toss you a t-shirt. So, come through. It should be fun. And yeah, all that. So guys, anti-psychonaut. I know I was saying to you guys earlier, it's a very interesting topic to do. I'm totally down with it. A couple of weeks ago, I had somebody on that was completely other way. And I do appreciate, my opinion, I don't think the drugs are needed. It was still an interesting topic. So I appreciate you guys coming on and actually covering it the other way. So I guess maybe we'll start with Richard. I guess, what was it that made you kind of like think about bringing this to the table? You think it's like something that needs to be talked about nowadays?
Yes. I'm very passionate about the work. And one thing I don't want for other people is to get stuck. Like, I love, there's a Jorge Luis Borges, the author. There's like one line in one of his stories where he says something like, he's a bit of a neo-Gnostic, where he says something like, you know, even if I be condemned to hell, let heaven exist for others. It's like, even if I don't make it, it's like someone else surely can. And so where I see dead ends, and, you know, the ultimate dead end is the path with no effort, or the path with no obstacles. The path with no obstacles leads nowhere. And that's what
I always feel like the easiest way doesn't work out the best.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people, it has become a modern meme of mixing drugs and substances with spirituality. And a lot of them, they go back into history and cherry pick and say that they're doing this, and it's the exact same thing. Just like the Eleusinian Mysteries, we're doing the exact same thing by, you know, taking heroin and LSD and going to a rave. No, it's these things, and it's. I want to preface as well. They have their place, but they need to be in their place. Anything out of its place becomes all-consuming and fundamentally damaging. And so, through this talk, or through our, like, you know, our back and forths, I want to hammer home my thesis that drugs can be used for healing. Certainly, psychedelics can be used for healing. There is a therapeutic benefit to these, to LSD, to DMT, to ayahuasca, whatever. There is certainly therapeutic benefits to them, but healing is not the same as regeneration. Creating a new organ or regrowing an arm is very different from healing trauma or a scratch. And so, you know, if you have a baseline number 0 and you come sick, you go minus 10, minus 20, healing brings you back to 0. I'm not interested in that. What takes you beyond 0? What takes you to plus 10, plus 20, plus 100? What takes you all the way to the sky, to the absolute, to the different dimensions, to the heavens? What takes you beyond merely human? I'm not interested in, and this is going to sound harsh, but I think we need to be harsh. There's been too much flower and hugs. I think I need to say it's being a loser and then becoming a normal person has nothing to do with spirituality or initiation. And it's great. It's great that your cousin, who was, you know, didn't have a job and was a broken person, went to an ayahuasca shaman, and now he's a functioning member of society. But that has nothing to do with initiation. And that's what I hope we can talk about today.
Very well said, sir. I like that. Collin, what about you?
Yeah, I'm pretty much in agreement with Richard on a lot of this. You know, I think the issue is because a lot of folks that are pretty well read in this stuff, and they're kind of open-minded. You know, maybe they'll take a psychedelic and they don't form a super big dogmatic opinion about it. But the issue is sort of always with this kind of dogmatism and whatnot. So you'll get a lot of people that, you know, they'll have their psychedelic experience, but they won't have any kind of natural experience that it sort of equates to that. And then it's really easy from that perspective to be like, oh, this must be, this is what the mysteries were about. This is why people have religion, et cetera, et cetera. It becomes this blanket that you throw on everything. This is usually always an incorrect thing to do with any kind of conclusion, is to just throw it out there as like, this is the end all be all. So the big critique here is against like the psychedelic maximalists, the ones that, you want to say it's all psychedelics. It must have originated from psychedelics. The only time you can see entities and communicate with these other intelligences is during these radical states of being on psychedelics. And that's just reductionary and dogmatic and everything else. And it's just not the case. So a lot of people want to impose that on the Eleusinian mysteries in particular. But of course, there was a lot of other mystery rites and ceremonial rites going around, especially the Eastern Mediterranean, in the ancient world. And a lot of the actual initiates of those mysteries wrote about them, and we have their extracts. Even though we've lost 99.9% of all ancient literature from all the languages, we still have these rich descriptions of the mysteries. And of course, being that they're mysteries, they're always vowed to secrecy to some degree. So they usually the initiates, as we see with Plutarch, even Herodotus, right? They'll come up to this point and then they'll say, we can say no more, right? That's just, Freemasons do that till this day. That's a common practice in these kind of initiatory rites. But from the descriptions that we do have, for instance, the one I'm going to read at some point tonight from Strabo, which is very lengthy, and from a lot of these other descriptions, we get the idea that when these rites were performed correctly. So for like the Eleusinian rites, there was like 30,000 people that could see a certain drama play out. Then there was 3,000, and then it got reduced to like a handful of people that could actually get initiated in the Telesterion, right? And so those are the individuals that, when I'm talking about what is happening in the mysteries and these initiation rites, it is that smaller percentage of the initiates there. And the description it basically results in the absence of a fear of death and the coming close to a state quite close to death and realizing immortality. And then you come back with a whole different perspective. And maybe in this visionary experience, you've encountered gods and goddesses and so forth. So that indicates that there's this radical experience going on, right? And here's the deal. If you think it's just a psychedelic, because all it takes for a psychedelic is you just swallow something and then there's an experience after that. But for these mysteries, in some cases, people were preparing for 6 months in advance, right? They're fasting, they're marching, along, they're conversing with people from all of these different countries. They're doing all of these practices. There's a level of anticipation there. It's like hitting you on all of these different sensory stimuli, right? So, for instance, in Strabo's description of the mysteries, is he says that they're performed kind of in accordance with like a festival, in that the candidates, there will be singing and dancing going on over here. There will be an oration over there, deep discussion about something over here. Singing and chanting, kind of getting out of your comfort zone, altering your state of being. Meanwhile, there's all this anticipation there. There's like this group mindset mentality. So all of these, there's no drug that is needed here. These are just like natural stimuli coming in. And, those in and of themselves can lead to these radical experiences, even out of body experiences and so on. And we have good, even modern institutions, let's say the Monroe Institute and so forth. They don't require psychedelics for any of their out of body experience training and this or that. So it's just objectively the psychedelic maximalist argument is just incorrect in terms of the source material and the available scientific data that we have right now. So it's just kind of like, it just gets disappointing. And I think Richard agrees with me here, is that it's disappointing that people want to, corner everything to the psychedelics when there's so much easily accessible data out there that just says otherwise, right? And so that's kind of where I begin my kind of approach to this whole thing.
Well, fellas,
go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say that from the sort of alchemical perspective, it's the dose that makes the poison. And living in a democratic society where you've got to change these laws and do this and that so that you can have the freedom to take a substance, what you find is that people are overdosing on the sales pitch for why these things need to be legalized. Whereas if you had, sort of a society that didn't view putting substances in your body like this as being a bad thing, I think the rationale would be to moderate more. But I think it's the sales pitch that really ruins it for everybody, because you have to create an overwhelming intellectual force to get anything done. Whereas, in a different situation, let's say the Eleusinian Mysteries, it wasn't that big of a deal to have, a small amount of psychedelic in the wine and then, go from there, as opposed to this being the only path now, because that's what everybody's talking about.
Yeah. There's a popularity to the psychedelics now that is sort of, it's very indicative of the kind of limitations that we live under, at least in terms of our belief systems and like what is, what our daily life looks like. So it's like, the kind of culture that we're in, we're sort of masters of limitations, and we love these easy fixes. We love these quick gratifications and stuff, especially if it meets our physical desires, and if we can, incorporate it into some erotic fantasy and things like this. So that's sort of an abuse of these things. And it's like, it's one thing to do it once or twice and whatnot, but then you can get into a sort of psychedelic induced mental illness. And, so there's a danger aspect of it there, that the sort of recreational community, we need to talk about the dangers here, the set and setting. So apply all of these, standards of safety. But, I can steel man the pro psychedelic argument. I can never steel man the psychedelic maximalist argument that it's only that, right? Because that's clearly not the case. But psychedelics have a place here, and they do occasionally come up in, the ancient literature in these very bizarre, it's like in the Picatrix, there's this thing like, one of the different Hermeses produces this like psychedelic oil by throwing opium and human blood and like sesame oil into a jar with a head, putting it over charcoals for 24 hours, and then, straining the liquid. And if you rub it on it says you will see whatever you want to see. And if you ingest it, you will see whatever you want to see. So it's like, we don't really know what substance he's talking about, but it is at least kind of indicative that, okay, someone somewhere in this kind of milieu possibly possess some kind of substance that they could see visions with and everything else. But usually when I find these indications of some kind of psychedelic going on, it's not clear. It's not really telling you that the kykeon is, it is what is doing this. It is what is allowing you to like not fear death. It's never that clear. And you would think that it would be that clear if it was the end all be all. And that's the issue, is that like even Brian Murarescu's Immortality Key, we come so far into that book and yet we're so inconclusive. And don't get me wrong, I love the scholarly effort that it takes to try to make these things, let them please continue your research, because I'm interested in finding the truth. And like, if we can't find that the kykeon isn't what, isn't like an LSD kind of thing, then we're sort of going to have to do away with that and get right back to, what the initiates themselves were telling us was going on. So, yeah.
If I can add to that as well, one of the other problems with modern society is, as opposed to these ancient societies which had these initiatic cults, in modern society we fundamentally have a materialist metaphysics, and this is incredibly problematic as well, because the ancients saw the spirit world. They had an understanding. They weren't all atheists. In modern day society, there's this reaction against the institutionalized religions. Like, we don't want a priest class regulating access to the other world. But the problem of that, then there becomes this kind of atheistic thing of, does that world even exist? And some people get it in their heads that the only way to kind of break the veil becomes psychedelics. It's almost like this latent materialism within psychedelics. The beings, the ghosts, the goblins, gods, angels, they don't really exist. They're just part of your mind, or you can only use it's something material. It's something external to myself that I put into my interior to change the interior thing. Whereas in the initiatic schools, there were always techniques, a technology, a system, an engine that's internal, that uses the internal to change the internal rather than getting an external force to change the external. So and that's another reason why I react against psychedelics and the use of drugs, is because to me, I see a subtle materialism behind them. It's like, you need to use this to get to the spirit world.
Which I think is kind of funny, I think I've seen it said about Jesus and maybe other people, that they were supposedly taking mushrooms and that's how they had their experience. It's just like,
yeah,
you know what I'm saying? It's just like, oh, well, now I guess you got to do it that way to be like that. It's just like, what the? You can't even give that guy credit and say he did it through meditation.
My reaction against that is always, look, buddy, if it really was the be all and end all, the Bible wouldn't exist. The Tao Te Ching wouldn't exist. The Vedas wouldn't exist. There would be no Buddha Sutras because you wouldn't need teachings. There would just be stories of wise men going around popping mushrooms in people's mouths. Like, we wouldn't have any sacred texts because we wouldn't need them. It would just all be mushrooms. It'd just be mushroom tea, different techniques for mushroom tea. And yet we have these sacred texts. We have systems. We have manuals for how to meditate, or for how to do prayer, for ceremonial magic. These technologies exist. So
yeah, well, and I'm sorry, Ethan, I think you're about to speak.
I was just going to say real quick, just to add actually on what you said, that we are, looking for the quick fix. I think that stems from a really laziness and a lack of taking responsibility for all the preparatory processes that might go into self-development and conscious development that then might have, the bonus of something like a psychedelic ceremony 4 months into the process. It might be a nice influence, but I think it's a matter of just laziness and materialism and so forth, that we're not getting deep with it in the preparation process of itself by itself, and just, oh yeah, let's just have fun, and I'll use it as excuse of my Gnostic pursuits.
Yeah, and the psychedelic experiences, I mean, they can take you to such a radical place that you might come back to them, and you might come back to reality and be like, there's no other way to get to that level of visionary, get to that visionary realm, or have these hallucinations, that appear like that. Well, schizophrenics would disagree in a sort of way. We don't understand really what's happening there, but like, they are experiencing, at least the ones that I know of, they are experiencing what they're experiencing. It might not be real for us, but for them, it's totally real. And that's why they're in the situation, that they're in. So there's a lot of these aspects here. Like, so it's even the idea that psychedelics, it's not clear to me that they play even like more than a 15%, like 15% of that's high in and of itself. So like, it's lower than I think people think, but I do admire the effort of, certain like PD Newman, for instance. I mean, he does great research to try to figure out where the psychedelics actually have their place. And like, that is commendable, other than just without the evidence here, just sort of saying that it's everywhere. We can find it everywhere. But it's like, it really is, it's also indicative that we focus on the psychedelics so much, is that we're not putting in the effort with all of these different practices. It's like Kriya yoga and, different things like Reiki, and just all the breath work, the things that can happen in, holotropic breathing and stuff. Like, people will have visions there. So there's all of these other natural visionary technologies that we need to exhaust. And we haven't done that yet. We need to exhaust them, at this more, I think, open level. It's like, I think the days of sort of keeping all the secrets among your sort of cult and your little initiatic circle or whatever, those days are kind of behind us. I mean, even Freemasons are openly discussing details of the rituals because they're out there already. If Duncan's ritual, like, you can find all of this stuff already. And so it's like, well, that means the Masons need to come in and try to discuss what's going on because they're the only ones that have actually experienced it, you know? So it's like they can actually talk about it. But so it's like the people who experience the mystery rites in the ancient world, they also wrote things and discussed them. And I just think it's important that let's exhaust those sources before we start drawing up these conclusions and like groping after what the kaikion, what the, you know, the substance of the drink actually was. Are we making progress here? I think we're making progress.
Sorry,
about
to your point of being a low percentage, wasn't it that you were only supposed to attend the Eleusinian mysteries once in your lifetime, right? So
I think that's the case. I don't know of anyone who did it twice. Yeah, at least in that, you know, higher circle. You might have attended at the audience level, but yeah, and there's like, you know, where maybe these psychedelic researchers could just do a little bit better research. I might be ignorant of the books or something that exist out there, but like there are cool accounts that are clearly something psychedelic is going on that no one actually discusses. Like Michael Sellis in his On the Operations of Demons, his book, he talks about the Bogomil sect, which is a sort of like Manichaean kind of Gnostic so-called group of Christians that were allegedly practicing these kind of orgiastic rites and, you know, summoning demons and so forth. Some of this is like a polemic against them from Orthodox Christian perspective. But in like kind of like a side note, in one of his descriptions, he says some vagabond from Africa, you know, initiated someone on a mountainside in like these obscure rites, and he pulled out this oil and he rubbed it over this person's eyes, and this person clearly is initiated into this kind of psychedelic mystery and sees all of these daemons and stuff, and this raven flies into his throat, you know. And there is like in certain psychedelic experiences, there's like this, like Ganesha will put her trunk down your throat or something like that and like suck away the negative energy or whatever. So it's like that's a little extract that people should zoom in on. The psychonautic researchers should zoom in on that extract, right? Same with the text, The Revelation of the Magi, you know, recent English translation for that, but it's like a one of a kind apocryphal Christian text, probably late 2nd century. And it describes the star that brings the Magi to baby Jesus in the, you know, the book of Matthew. It sort of fills in the gaps there. And long story short, these Magi that encounter this orb-like angel who is also the Son of God, the pre-incarnate, you know, Son of God, Jesus Christ figure himself. And out of this light, the Son of God figure gives the Magi like these provisions, and these sacred provisions the Magi eat, and they clearly have visions directly due to these particular provisions and stuff. So it's like there's an example that psychedelic researchers could hone in on and maybe, you know, do something with, maybe compare it to other apocryphal accounts, maybe compare it to the kind of anointing oil accounts, right? So it's not to say that there aren't mysteries here and worthy investigations. There definitely are. But like, let's do that, and let's see what we can unearth from that, instead of doing this sort of you know, the game of conclusions.
And I have to say, to add on that as well, a lot of what I've seen of the ancient sects that do use psychedelics in their initiatic rites, it's always something kindergarten. And that's something I also want to bring home. When drugs are used, it's something at the very early basic stages for someone completely new who's experienced nothing. And that's another place where I see it's reasonable nowadays. Like if you do have someone who is a complete materialist maybe, and they just want something, like, you know, Carlos Castaneda, maybe he needed the peyote and he wasn't going to make it otherwise. So it's like the most basic, like kindergarten thing you can use that for. But that's not, once again, the map is not the terrain. The map is not the engine. There's two different things. And it's like, you're not moving on the path, oh, I dissolved my ego through this. It's like, no, it's like, it's the most basic thing. And then there's a greater work afterwards.
in a lot of ways, it's like the change in perspective is useful for allowing people to shift into other frames of consciousness. But if you think about it, like these things are just as symbolic without you even taking them. So if you're trying to get in touch with the spirits and you've actually done it before on the substance, repeating that off of the substance should be the goal, because you are actually trying to converse on a normal level playing field with the entities over in that realm. So what they've done is they've mistaken the bridge for the only way across the chasm. And that sort of seems to be the thing with the materialistic elements, is that they don't really have a conception that maybe these things are real outside of the substance.
Yeah, there's always that problem of unearned enlightenment, because it doesn't have that those long-term benefits. Whereas someone who's like training and who is coming at these things in earnest and has like the intentions of self-improvement and self-transformation, they're just naturally going to get a better benefit of any kind of experiential sort of catharsis. And it's the reverence. There's also this reverence that we need to bring into these experiences. And it's like everyone who's been to a music festival these days knows that this shit is being done without reverence. It's just like, you know, if you're drinking Bud Light on like 3 grams of shrooms and like also like sucking down a nicotine vape, it's like, dude, that shit's there's a lot going on there. You know, I don't want your commentary.
That's party time. That's not trying to have a spiritual experience. That's just party time right there.
Right. But it's, there's clearly there's clearly this sort of mixed things where the recreational use of psychedelics is kind of can mar some of at least in the terms of the regular cultural kind of understanding of these things. It's like, oh, well, the ancients were just taking psychedelics. So now the issue is that these big, talking heads and these figures on these podcasts, they're just sort of the Eleusinian mysteries. It was a psychedelic thing. And like, it hasn't been concluded that strongly yet. At the very best, a recent study done on the ergot and their whole mixture showed that there is a possibility that it produced a low grade LSD kind of effect. But it would have been a very small amount if it did that. So that's like, I think that's the state of that research right now, is that there can be some extraction there, but it's extremely low dosage, and I don't think any humans have actually tested it out though. That's the issue. So yeah, there's a lot of these problems, and it would all be solved if people read the books, and went out there and had natural experiences, and that they could compare and contrast to their psychedelic experiences as well, because that's the thing. I've experienced both, and yet I'm still pretty strongly I strongly disagree with where this whole movement has taken course. Yeah,
I think it comes from knowing thyself.
One thing I did want to say.
Go ahead.
That helps. One thing I kind of wanted to add, I think, to something that you had said, or maybe it was both of you, kind of said something about perception. Now, like for people, there's very few people I knew personally, but there was enough that I knew that microdosed, like either acid or shrooms, or had even taken like DMT or ayahuasca in a controlled setting. And I'll just be totally honest with you, most of them, their perception of reality completely fucking changed after that. And in my opinion, weird. Like now all of a sudden everywhere he's like related to Palladians or some fucking reptilian fucking races coming into, and I'm just like, what the fuck happened? I'm just, and like maybe sometimes that's not the best thing either. I don't know. But like even another thing I wanted to add, and I wanted to say this earlier, but I'm gonna let you guys go. Another reasons why I find this topic interesting, because I was friends with somebody who was very close to me that was very big into using these psychedelics. And unfortunately, I mean, it is what it is if the kid's even listening to the show. When he was using the shit continuously, his life turned to shit. I mean, married, divorced, moved, I don't know how many times, all this. Like, so as like a magician who's supposed to be doing this stuff to have spiritual experiences and work on shadow work, it didn't look like you were getting anywhere, my man. Looks like things are getting worse.
Mhm.
So just to me, it was just like, is the drugs the problem? I don't know. But
I can
again,
jump-
just even perception, I do fuck you all up with that shit too. Your perception of reality. Go ahead, Richard.
Yeah, if I can jump in there, this goes back to another thing, which is just because something comes from beyond the veil doesn't mean it's at all intelligent or even that great. And so it's one of those things. The beings you see, I'm not one of those guys who says, "Oh, when you take psychedelics, it's all in your head." I actually think some of those experiences are very real and very genuine.
Oh,
But here's the thing. Here's the thing. The difference when you take psychedelics, there's also a passivity in your essence. Whereas when you are engaged in the work, in initiatic workings, there's activity. Like, you can take a drug and that will change your phenomenology, but you can overload yourself with anything. You can take alcohol and that will give you weird experiences as well. Like, I know people who kind of feel a separation when they take alcohol, which is very interesting. Like, they feel the part of themselves that gets drunk, and there's that other part of them that goes, "Oh, I'm getting drunk." And it's like they can see this kind of dualism. And it's like if you take 100 cups of coffee, you'll also change your phenomenal. I guarantee you will experience a phenomenological difference of the world if you take 100 cups of coffee. But nonetheless, one of the points of spiritual work or experience, in my experience, as meeting people and talking to people, there's a lot of spiritual experience that's gained through practice, and work is very subtle. And the whole point is to kind of refine yourself. So it's like, I use the example of, you get a gem like a topaz and you hold it in your hand and you close your eyes and it's like, what do you feel? And some people kind of like, "Oh, my gem Bible says a topaz corresponds." No. Throw your gem Bible in the bin. What do you feel when you have like the topaz in your hand? And it's like, you are trying to interact with that thing. That thing is speaking to you. Everything in the world is speaking. The wind is speaking. The tree is speaking. The grass is speaking. There's this continuous dialogue that's always happening. It's just our physical faculties are overloaded, and so that information that comes in, that suprasensible information, is sent into our subconscious. We're not conscious of it. It's there, and some people are very intuitive, and they know when a plant needs this and that, and they've got the green thumb because they can speak to plants. It's in them. It goes into their subconscious and something registers consciously, but for most people, it goes into the subconscious and it stays there. Whereas when you do esoteric practice, you try to draw that out, you try to engage with that, and you do that actively. When you take substance, even in, like, if you do the environment properly and you fast for 40 days, there's still a passivity to it. And this is problematic because I always remember, it's in like a kind of a Rudolf Steiner lecture at one point, he talks about the astral belt of lies. And I was like, oh, this is interesting because there's an esoteric spin in the astral world, in the lower astral world. There's a belt where when you hit it, it's illusory. It's real, but it's real. But there's the truth and the lie gets mixed together. And when a truth and a lie gets mixed together, that's double trouble. Because truth is often dry, but when you add lies to truth, then it starts to sparkle. And also lies, if you push against them, if you push against a lie, it'll fall over. But if you have truth there to prop it up, the lie becomes actually quite reinforced. So when you mix truth with lie, it's just like that astral belt of lies is one of the biggest problems. And I'm like, and this is also for people who don't take drugs, for people who have a little bit of delusion in them, and then they get into the spiritual work and they start doing numerology, they read the Kabbalion once, and then all of a sudden they think they're Jesus incarnate. It's like, this is a perennial problem. And just because you're taking a psychedelics, you don't skip that process. There is a process very early on where it's like a megalomania almost. And it's like, those spiritual beings that are beyond the veil, they may not, that may be just a quality of the astral belt of lies. And you may not go anywhere. And this is just it. I see people just like your friend continuously who are stuck. It's like, I met a guy, I know a guy actually, he's doing well now, but I met him down in Byron. Well, he's from Byron. Well, no. Let me just say Byron Bay, Australia. If you know what happens there, you know what happens there. This guy, the list of drugs he took, like if it rolled out on a scroll, the scroll would go across the room. He told me that he took ayahuasca 13 times. And it's like the last time he took it was like a triple dose or something. And he said he had this experience where like the void opened up and all the gods were there and the Divine Mother came to him. But then she spoke to him and she turned and she pointed to all of the gods and see all of this. This is just an impression. And it's like there was something real that finally cracked through and he realized like, I need to stop taking drugs. I need to do a work. This is just an experience. And that's what I see. And this guy I met, he was a nice guy, but he was normal. He didn't have any attainment. He wasn't a master. There were no cities there. There was no extraordinary knowledge. And when I say extraordinary knowledge, look, he had weird experiences. He had cool psychedelic experiences that were crystallized in his memory, but he wasn't an unusual person beyond that. And it's like, for him, something finally cracked and broke, and it's like, oh, I need to actually find the work. And, you know, he's doing well. He got some Golden Dawn stuff, and he's doing some things. But it's like, that's what I see most of the time, is people take them and the megalomania test, they completely fumble and stumble, and it's like, I dissolved my ego. That's it. Done, guys. No, LSD once, I'm done. One and done, baby.
I like how you said that though, megalomania, but yeah, that's pretty interesting. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I once had a festival on my property and whatnot, and try not to get too specific here, but let's just say nefarious people can get their hands on these substances, you know, have all of these sort of unstressed conclusions about how, you know, sacred psychedelics are, and then they're around a bunch of gullible and naive people that don't really think critically about these things, and then they can actually do harm. I realize that this isn't happening like all the time everywhere with everyone uses psychedelics, but it does happen. Like one of my good friends, you know, was given by this total moron like a teeny vial of liquid LSD or whatever, and he was just like, take the rest of it. And, you know, the person who took it was just being too like, oh, you know, I want to be one of the cool kids kind of thing, drank the whole thing, and like, I mean, lost, you know, for the next 8 hours. Like we had him in the car with AC on him, like trying to get him good. Luckily I had like a ER friend that was, you know, on the property too, so it was all good. But he tried to run into our lake, like you know, stripped his clothes down, running straight for the lake, and like we grabbed him and, you know, brought him back down. That's just one of these sort of revelatory moments where it's like, dude, this stuff in the wrong type of hands is tragic, and it can ruin people's lives. And I've seen way worse situations play out there. So you'll get these kind of like micro gurus with big egos, and really they're just drug dealers who happen to have psychedelics. And they kind of, you know, they have like some bro science facts related to the psychedelics on their shoulder, and they're around some gullible people. And then, you know, people are just damaging their lives. And that's when it's really sad. So it's like, whereas when you find, you know, some North American tribes sharing like Yopan tea ceremonies or smoking the tobacco pipe and stuff in ceremony, it is all sort of traditional. It has these parameters about it. There's that layer of reverence there. Your ancestors did it too, and it is intent. Like the intentions are pretty clear as to what's going on, right? When someone in the Lakota tribe or various different tribes in North America set out to do their vigils or their rites of passage, for instance, you know, they would go out with the shaman, and the shaman would sort of say, all right, look, here's what you do. You got to fast for 3 days. We've dug this pit in the mountainside. You know, you go into the pit, and like, that's where you're going to sit in this pit for X number of days and wait there until the spirits come to you. Right. Sometimes the spirits didn't come, and then the person came back down the mountainside. talked with the shaman, and shaman was like, yeah, you know, there's also something in that too. Like you just gotta work harder. You got to do something different. Or there's that sort of tough love kind of message there. There was always a way through it, even if you didn't have the experience. The shamans understood because they had brought so many people through this kind of thing. Or you could be in this pit, similar to like Timarchus in Greece, who visited the cave of Trophonius, right? He didn't drink a psychedelic, according to Plutarch, before having his near-death experience, right? Neither did these youths in the North American tribes who go up the mountainside and they wait in these caves or pits or something. And usually they're making a sacrifice, right? When you're fasting, you're sacrificing something, right? They're making this sacrifice, and there's this intention there, and you have to go through this kind of period of darkness, and then something can come through, you know. But these are totally not reliant on any you know, material medium. And that's the idea. It's that our language about natural visionary experiences just needs to get upgraded. And it won't get upgraded also if everyone's too catty about their experiences or can't have a conversation about their experiences. Like, you don't need to give us the whole package, but we need to at least be able to communicate on some level. Like, hey, yeah, I know what you're talking about. That happened to me too in meditation, stuff like that. We need to bring this out of like some, you know, like the alchemists, you know, they're obscuring their language so much that no one knows what's going on anymore. Like that kind of phase, I think, you know, it has its place here or there, but in order to bring this stuff to the practical level, we have to talk about it openly, and we have to focus on these natural visionary experiences that underlie, I think, the origins of religious belief in the first place are actually those experiences, and they don't require psychedelics. Okay. But sure, if someone came across a pipe loaded with DMT in the ancient world and they smoked it, would they come out of that with like some wild beliefs? Like, yeah, definitely. Right. But I think we're dealing with something more natural here. And, you know, on that note, last little thing here, it's like when asked, these Amazonian shamans, how did you find ayahuasca? You know, they said the plants told us. So, but even the guys deep in the research there, they want to appeal to the skeptics and say, well, they could work this out over 10,000 experiments, combining this plant and that plant. And I'm like, guys, they told you what happened. They already told you how it happened. And so we're always looking for this sort of more rational kind of way around these things. But speaking to a plant or something, it just sounds, oh my God, it's so fantastic. But that kind of clues you into how far away we are from the actual mindset of the people that were discovering the psychedelics that now we cherish. They had a totally different ontology, you know, that they could telepathically communicate with plants and this and that. So we like have erased all of that context and all of that earning and what people had to do to deserve these things. We've erased that. And, you know, so that's why we have to bring it in this discussion, and it's sort of valuable to flesh all of this out.
May I add, Nick, it's a great question that you posed, like the kind of delulu that comes about from people even doing a small amount. And I think it, and Collin, what you were just talking about in regards to fasting and ritual preparation, any number of sorts of initiation processes. I think a lot of that adds up to confusion, and the learning process of Kung Fu, Tai Chi, and so on. It's really a confusing and humbling experience, but yet is beneficial and grounding and so forth. And it's interesting that psychedelics and narcotics can be confusing. And I think when one has gone through a lot of confusion and overcoming confusion, even in a sober sense, I think confusion is what development tastes like, if you will. And so I think it is an example of this preparation or initiation benefit that can help us deal with these things that might bring people into this spiritual euphoria where everything is a sign, if you will, or something akin to that, and not grounded as they proceed. So I just wanted to add that. The confusion, I think, is a helpful thing in development.
Yeah, I think the shamans themselves would be horrified that people are taking these psychoactive substances inside of a rave. It's like, how are you not riddled with demons at this point? So it's, the different distractions and things that take you off the course surrounding you during these things are very influential on how that, relates to your experiences and how you relate to them. So, I mean, you could change your perception looking at a color. You could change your perception by having certain herbs burning. Like the whole idea that you need strong psychoactive substances to change your perception is actually completely off of the mark that you would want to, perpetuate with attaining the ability to witness this stuff.
That's really well said. I mean, that's even like stuff that I've even trying to like get at, and we'll try to get more at on the show myself, is between like, if you have the choice of sacred architecture, sound, herbs, crystals, there's so many things that could already start affecting your vagus nerve, your parasympathetic shit, that you can actually like kind of lower yourself down and get into a relaxed state just from all that aiding you already. So yeah, I mean, just without the drugs.
Yeah, and it's still a mystery as far as the chemicals that our body produces and what role they play in these experiences too. Because I mean, it is fascinating that the body already possesses the kind of cannabinoid system that knows exactly what to do when you inhale THC and whatnot. We already make small levels of DMT in our body, and we're not necessarily quite sure what their function are. Strassman has at least somewhat indicated that it plays a role in our dreams, but then again, we're not really sure. But you have things like gigantism or whatnot, which is a sort of, I believe the thyroid produces an excess level of growth hormone and literally turns people into giants, right? So this is a kind of chemical imbalance in the body that has these drastic kind of effects. So we don't know enough about those processes, but it's like we know that holotropic breathing produces more nitric oxide in the brain. Okay. And that's why the experiences that people have doing that practice is similar to when they just suck down a nitrous oxide balloon, but you don't need the balloons. You can do this in a different way that is healthier, right? And it requires effort. So there is a different kind of catharsis at the end of that journey than just sort of taking something, right? So it's like the psychedelics are not going away. If anything, I think, we're probably going to see revivals on a number of different levels of, different kind of psychedelics. So it's worth trying to establish as psychedelics continue to influence culture in general and no doubt influence people's perspective on spirituality and whatnot, getting it back into this sense of reverence and this sense of like if you wanted to create a new mystery ritual based around kind of a psychedelic at the end of that, like that, there's validity there. There's something good there. If the parameters are right, the people involved are like decent and everything else, and it's not too, crazy. Like there's value there. But it's, of course, it's not the only thing that exists. And that's, we're beating a dead horse here by saying this over and over, but we're going to have to continue to say it over and sort of flesh out the argument and develop the different points here, because the debate is going to ramp up, actually.
Well, one thing I would even like to point at, I was thinking of while you're talking about this stuff, and that to start getting a little bit on the more conspiratorial side, but this is just my opinion, that it could be quite possible. It's a theory. I'm sure some people might agree that maybe during like certain like music things or the Grateful Dead, maybe not all that acid, or like maybe some of that acid might have been from the CIA. You never know. You know, you never know what that shit, where that stuff was coming from, and if people just being studied, you have no idea. You know, so like I do believe that maybe certain places can get infiltrated by drugs or studies. Like, who's to say this isn't just another one?
I mean, that could be another argument for or another division in the community, artificial or natural. Like, if you truly want to be spiritual, just pure natural, baby. You got to go natty. You can't not be natty.
And then
mushrooms or nothing.
And then when you get these people that have these crazy experiences and now think that there's some like Palladian moon goddess, people would be like, well, that's what happens when you take that shit. You're fucking crazy. You know what I'm saying? So then it just, it really just makes the whole thing just look fucked up. Yeah, it's
very possible. Very possible.
But, no, I've just wondered that.
I think another thing I want to mention also in this is the difference between permanent change and temporary change. And this is to go towards also advancement or walking along the spiritual path or something. Maybe I want to just move back a bit and I have these categories I just want to mention first when I talk about this, because some people, they get the wrong impression when I say spirituality. I have these 3 tiers: religion, spirituality, and mysticism. The religious is is the first one, the basic one. Someone who's religious doesn't necessarily care about having a spiritual experience. The Christian who goes to church, he still believes there's something beyond the veil and he draws ethics from it, but he's just religious. He goes to church on the weekend. Someone who's spiritual is a little bit deeper. They want to experience what's beyond the veil, but they may never change in their they may not be necessarily interested in transformation of their self. Like, they may not want, they just want to kind of live life, but also be among the spirits kind of thing. Whereas a mystic is someone who has real experience from beyond the veil and they've actually been transformed by it. The only problem is a true mystic, mystics, they don't choose to be mystics. It's the thing beyond the veil reaches down and grabs them and pulls them upwards. And the counter to that is, on that level, there's something like along the side of that. And that is someone who wants that. They want transformation and they do something to initiate that process. And the thing is, in this class, the experience, the perception is an effect. It's not a cause. The cause is you apply something. So it's like in the East, you do Kriya Yoga, you do this Hamsa exercise where you visualize, energy coming up the spine and into the forehead. And you do this continuously. And then sometimes they say you experience light. If you just take a drug and you experience light in your forehead, so what? That's an effect. You didn't do the cause. The whole point is you saturate the spine with this energy, and then that has an effect, and then that changes you, and then certain things in your life may change. Or you as a person, like continuously moving your energies inwards, can change certain qualities psychologically permanently in you. It's like you do the cause and you get these effects. These spiritual things, or I saw this spirit, or I saw these lights, they are effects. They're not important at all, but also they are important in the sense of you've done the practice correctly. And it's a litmus test that you've done the practice correctly. You don't want to be doing a practice wrong for like 20 years. And then it's like, oh, I've been doing it wrong, all this time kind of thing. If you apply a cause, it should have an effect. But if you're just taking a drug and having an experience, that's just an effect without anything. I like to say it's like, like going to the gym and working out and changing your body. But the concept of an exoskeleton, they're talking about it now. It's like you get kind of a robot suit over yourself. And they kind of have military exosuits now where it's you have the robot moves kind of for you, or you can lift something extra large if you have this kind of robot kind of exoskeleton on your arm and that kind of thing. It's like taking a drug for spirituality is like that. Is you're putting something on and it's giving you this huge effects, and then you can lift 300, 400, 500 pounds. But then once you take the exoskeleton off, you're just back to a normal skinny dude. You're back to a normal human. And that's the
Iron Man suit on.
Yeah, that's the thing exactly. It's the difference between Iron Man and Thor. What do you want to be? Oh, billionaire playboy, and then what? What are you without the suit? Or are you Captain America? Are you actually Thor, like just generating like lightning out of yourself, or generating strength and virtue out of yourself via the internal? It's like, what do you want to be? And so it's kind of like I see it, there's no real development. And people always counter that, and it's like, and they always counter that by saying, oh, but it changed me from the, and it's like, no, you're mistaking. You're falling into the healing versus regeneration thing again. Broken people becoming normal is not initiation. Someone who's already kind of got it together, going into something even greater, going beyond human. That's what we're interested in. The ladder of being, you know, vegetable, animal, human, and then something potentially beyond. We want to go beyond. We don't just want to be a human with an odd experience. Cause and effect. Permanent change, not temporary experience.
I like that. That was well said. I think that's why before I was like saying that sounds like party time to me, because it just sounds like you're taking shit just to do it, and there was no reason why. Yeah, I get that, man. Nice. Anybody have anything they wanted to add, or?
As far as this goes, it's probably, I think we've probably covered most of it as far as an introductory sort of fleshing out the general kind of argument against psychedelic maximalism. Because then, you know, the next step, if there was a debate in the cards or whatever, so we would start busting out receipts and doing that whole ping pong and that whole thing back and forth, which would be fun. But
that could get interesting. Keep that in mind if you ever want to.
Sign me up.
Yeah, I mean, I got no skin in the game, so I mean, it's all cool for me.
I'm not a debate guy, but I'm up for some fun.
yeah, I think exactly.
Civil discussion.
Well, that's another interesting point, though. The people who do have skin in the game have been researching this in sort of private settings for, you know, decades upon decades since the 1950s that we know of. And maybe there's a little bit more to that agenda than a lot of people are giving it credit for, because, you know, we see all of this stuff sort of popping up as these advocacy groups, and maybe there has more to do with maybe what the purposes were originally, which is human testing. So it's just something to be aware of and stay cautious of.
I mean, that's totally going on the, you know, the conspiracy route as well. That's can also be another thing. It's like the forces that be know that drugs are a dead end. So to over recommend them, and to have people who have a kind of copium. It's like they've been in, because you see this in some spiritual schools where it's like a guy's been in for 20 years. And if you're in a spiritual kind of scenario for so long, you get it into your head sometimes. It's like, I'm spiritual. And then if something goes wrong, well, I'm spiritual. It has to be someone else. It can't be me. I've done the work. And if you're just doing drugs all the time, and then you can kind of like, if you've never done anything, you haven't really gotten anywhere, there can be a kind of a copium for that. So they go into the literature, they do all this study, they get all this skin in the game because it's a kind of copium. No, it is good. I've been working this entire time. And then, of course, there's the people behind them going, yes, tell the others. And it's all this, that's where it becomes conspiratorial. I can see that.
Well, and I think you guys already won the debate in a sense by putting forth the idea that it does have medical and or healing properties and uses for certain people, but the true Richard and Collin, I think you guys summed it up essentially. There's no prescription for cities, right? It's more instructions towards meditation that you may gain such effects. Collin, sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, no worries at all. Yeah, I mean, it's worth pointing out like the positives for psychedelics as well. Like, are there some people that I would be like, dude, I just want to shove a mushroom down your mouth just so you have some inkling that there's something beyond your ego that exists. Like, yes, there's people that we all want to do that with, but you know, we can't do that. But yeah, so it's like, I think it can lead a lot of sort of dogmatic and kind of sort of rigorously rigid people, it can produce a shift in belief, which can be powerful. But those shifts, they don't necessarily, like, you can't keep pressing the shift belief button, so if something results in that shift of belief, like, okay, now I believe in spirits because I smoked DMT and I encountered things that I can't explain and they were communicating with me and it was so bizarre. It's like, all right, I think that's sort of a positive thing. If that works in a positive way in your reality, that now you believe in spirits, now you sort of understand, boom, there's a good positive benefit from psychedelic uses that I honestly want to kind of, safe and everything else, advocate for sure. That's where I think it has its place. Not in this sort of chaotic, everything's recreational, nothing has intention behind it. We're just doing this for euphoria, so it makes our sex better and our dancing better and this and that. People want to ride that train until they're basically 40 and they've lost the purpose in life. And now they don't look as good anymore. They don't feel as good. What have I been doing? I've been frying my brain on psychedelics. And it's like, when I was younger and a little bit more championing the psychedelics and didn't have enough experiences myself, I was a little more gung-ho about it. But then when you have like a terrible trip or a couple of these, right? Like, salvia, they used to sell, and they might still sell salvia at like gas stations, right? If you smoke salvia, you will be confronted with the most bizarre hallucinations you don't ever want to imagine. It is nightmarish what can happen, right? Don't do it. It's not great. I mean, Terrence McKenna, he describes a certain way to do it where, it's different. But I mean, I saw like reality unzip. And in one instance, there was like 50 different boxes of myself that I saw stumbling. And it was like a hologram of me just stumbling in a yard. And I came back to reality, hitting myself in the face, trying to wake up out of it, So it's like, I mean, it can just, it's like, I don't know what to take from that other than, don't do that anymore. And hallucinations are possible. Right. So it's like, there's only so much we can extract from it. Now with the DMT-X research, I think those guys they're going to get into the territory with psychedelics. And this is the IV drip of the DMT. They might get into a territory that is scientifically useful. And this is, let me qualify that. It's like, if they can encounter an entity in that space and say, here's a mathematical problem, and the entity solves it and they bring it back or whatever, that's kind of what they're trying to do. They're trying to let the entity do something that the person having the experience cannot do, so that they bring it back as like experiential proof of the objective existence of this entity. That's the fascinating research that this stuff can, get into. And I'm all for that, So I think it's gonna get interesting. So it's worth trying to figure out, where are we at in this whole argument, and what are the points for and against this stuff. So I think we've done some good introductory work on that here.
Oh hell yeah, that was great. Ethan and Headless, did you guys want to add anything? You got anything to say?
Sure, yeah. Doing salvia myself, I lost all control over the internal temperature regulation in my body. So even though it's perfectly fine outside, you feel like you're freezing to death. So is that really worth fucking around with your autonomic nervous system? It's it's something else happening there. So these things aren't regulated, but that doesn't mean that they're safe. And a lot of people miss that sort of distinction because they think that, chemicals that are unregulated means they're safe, but that's not true at all. It's just, you got to understand that the dose makes the poison. And a lot of times people don't do that because they're used to having warning labels all over everything. And I don't think that if they legalized psychedelics, that it would come with a warning label that says could cause extended adolescence. That ego death that you're experiencing might just be you thinking you're a child forever. So how is that useful?
I like that. Well said, Headless. All right. I guess we could probably. You guys are cool with wrapping it up then. I guess. You guys, yeah, there's no reason to keep going on. Then. That was great though, man. I really appreciate the way you guys presented all that. You know, again, I mean, I totally agree with you guys. Anyway, I don't think drugs are. Before we wrap it up, we'll have everybody like their stuff one more time. What is going on, Ethan? Remember the books this time.
Well, that was awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, you guys. It's inspiring to get more confusion in my mind. So yeah, Ethan Indigo Smith. I appreciate anyone who reaches out to communicate. And tomorrow, Sunday's Headless and I'll be doing the trialogue, hopefully with Ricardo. Maybe we'll have to get Nick on if he's not busy, if Ricardo doesn't show up.
Okay. Yeah, maybe could.
And always trying to do a little writing here and there on Occult Research Institute. And I got a bunch of books out there. Geometry of Energy is a free ebook if anyone does ebooks for the next few days. And again, Richard, Collin, thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us, Ethan, and for your questions and your input. And Headless Giant, sir.
How you doing? You can check me tomorrow on the trialogues at about 10:30 Central, and Ethan's going to be there with me, and it's going to be a great time. Also, I love being the people to be talking about this stuff instead of leaving it up to some of the more duplicitous members of society trying to fearmonger about it, which is not what you need in cases like this, because I think there's that instant sort of like revulsion against the fear mongers that then brings people into it and doing things that are unsafe because they were told not to do it. So I think these are good discussions to have, and I think people should really consider these things from a wider perspective. So thank you very much.
No, thank you, Headless. Appreciate it. And we'll start off with Richard first. Please let everybody know where they can find all your work.
Once again, you can find me on Twitter. I'm probably pretty active there. Check out my Substacks. I should probably write a new one. I'm so behind on everything. I got some more videos in the works. Subscribe to my channel. Hang out on hang out for my Manly P. Hole streams. And also, if you're a YouTube member, in the secret chat, we got a little Hermetic study group going. We'll probably do another reading of Franz Barden soon. So look forward to that.
Very nice. And yeah, if people didn't catch it when he was on here the first time, I think we talked about Rosicrucianism. If you're into that, go check out the other episode. And Collin, please, man, let everybody know what's up with you and people can find all your amazing stuff.
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube, American Esoteric. All the links to my socials are on there. I've got a fascinating essay coming up on Arabic Hermetica, and it is a sort of there's a lot of tangled weeds, and it's a difficult and sort of strenuous sort of study because there's not much out there, but there's possibly more Hermetica writings attributed to Hermes in Arabic than any other language. So it's like a huge trove of Hermetica that have they haven't been touched. No one is touching them. I mean, the best, like the book, The Arabic Hermes, von Blottel's work, was published in I think the late 2000s and whatnot. And Walter Scott published, one of the larger Arabic Hermeticas in volume 4 of a book that, it's super hard to get now. And then Hermetica 2, Litwa's version, there's only a couple little, references there. So it should be a fascinating and long essay. So trudging through that material now. Yes.
Well, that is awesome.
The amount of things in other languages we'll just never know about makes me weep.
Yeah. I don't know why I did this, but it was like self-flagellation. I bought this huge German, 1,000-page book in German on the Mason I'm giving a lecture on, just to be all right, I'll have this if I ever learn German, but until then, it's just going to stare at me on the bookshelf,
Just get a German to English dictionary and start plowing.
Yeah.
Page by page.
You're right. There you go, man. Yeah. But thank you both very much. I thought that was awesome. Really well done, And I thank all the people in the chat too. Everybody who showed up for the live. That's what's up. That's why we go live. And just to reiterate again, it was April 25th, correct? Right, Colin?
That's right. April 25th, the Southeastern Masonic Symposium, Asheville Lodge. We're covering the different Masonic luminaries, so different Masons in history that deserve a little more attention and have some sort of mystical and esoteric elements to them as well. So should make for a good day of work.
Awesome. Nice. All right. Yes. Well, again, thank you everybody who joined. Again, thank you, Colin and Richard. It was awesome. And everybody in the chat. And until the next one, everybody be well. Later.